All right, so here we go.
Mhm.
Hi, everyone. Miranda Cady, Premier Sotheby's International Realty in sunny Orlando, Florida. And I am so excited today. I have Judy Gibbons here from Chicago. I could not be more thrilled. I know we've been talking a lot this week about Frank Lloyd Wright, mid-century modern architecture. And for most of you who are familiar with his history and heritage, he actually started there in Spring Green, Wisconsin, just northwest of Judy. And there's so much architectural influence there in Chicago. So this is really a great place to start discussing. And today, Judy's going to talk a little bit about Ed Dart, who was one of Frank Lloyd Wright's understudies. He had many. And I'm actually sitting in the virtual living room of a Neil Schweitzer and Dwayne Stark design that actually they also studied as proteges under Frank Lloyd Wright. So excited to talk architecture, our beautiful Sotheby's network, and our two markets, Orlando and Chicagoland. So welcome, Judy.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. Really honored to be talking with you. And we were saying before we went live here that the Sotheby's International Realty family is what really truly brings us together. And then our love of architecture and all things beautiful and possibly. And so I'm very honored and a great fan of these architects. And it's kind of funny how it came upon me coming from Barrington Hills and where I do most of my business. My family's been in Barrington since 1958. So a long time. I want to kind of give you a visual of what it is. It's a sleepy little town with 5-acre minimums.
Oh, nice.
And every day you could see a horse walking down the street with its owner on its back, or you could see fancy chickens. It's quite a different lifestyle, and it's only 40 miles from the city of Chicago. So it's kind of this little hamlet.
Yeah.
And you either want that lifestyle or you don't. So it's a very interesting a mix of characters, would I say, because you'll have somebody, you know, with maybe a 12,000 square foot home that, you know, has got all the toys, or you might have somebody who's got, you know, a 2,000 square foot house with a 8,000 square foot barn. So sometimes the barn is more important than the house.
Lots of diversity, especially for those equestrian lovers.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
It's so funny. I'm going to step back for a second and talk a little bit about our Sotheby's network and our referral group, and just how we spoke a little bit off camera about it's almost like a sorority or a sisterhood. And I know we had talked a little bit with Kevin Thompson about that here on Monday. I feel so honored. And for everyone watching, this is my first time meeting Judy, and I couldn't be more excited. I already feel like I have a best friend. And that's just what's so great about it, is that we know the caliber and quality of our Sotheby's colleagues all over the globe, and that there's a sense of trust and integrity that not only can we open up and say, you know what, you were going to be in the right hands with this agent, but we can hop on a Zoom call and know that it's just going to be this seamless, friendly chat that's really easy to have. And so thank you, Judy, for opening up this opportunity to connect and meet live on video. And then also, actually, a lot of people, I understand, you know, when I talk about Winter Park and Windermere and all of our little greater Orlando metro neighborhoods that make us so fantastic, not everyone around the country is familiar. So, you know, you were talking about Barrington Heights. I'm very familiar with like Oak Park, where Frank Lloyd Wright actually did most of his work in his early stages of his career. Can you talk a little bit about Chicagoland and kind of where the suburbs are located geographically?
Sure. So geography wasn't my school, but I will.
Northwest, east, south.
I
Probably not south.
I always joke that I couldn't have been a realtor without GPS. so thank goodness. So for the past 16 years, I've used GPS. So you have Chicago, which is on the lake. Mm-hmm. And then you can go to what's called the North Shore, which is embraces mid-century modern and very eclectic, beautiful, but very modern.
Up towards Lincoln Park, that
Well,
whole.
no, past Chicago. That would be a
Yes,
suburb.
Okay.
But so Chicago is many, many neighborhoods. I think there's 77
Wow.
different parts of what's considered Chicago. So very diverse, very, some close to the Loop, obviously. That was named because of the L track that goes around it. And that's where most businesses finance, financial companies, things like that.
Ryan Purett actually warned me at Level Up in Manhattan Beach. He's like, you cannot consider Naperville Chicago. He's like, don't even say that in public. It's embarrassing. I was like, okay, sorry. He's not wrong, right? I mean, it's pretty much the outer cusp, the west. It's the very west, of what would it might as well be Iowa, right?
well, not really, because I went to school in Iowa. But
where did you go to school?
Iowa State.
Oh, nice. So,
well, my parents wouldn't let me move to New York City because I studied fashion. But believe it or not, they had a great textiles and merchandising program. When I ended up in New York anyway, when I was 23.
So this is going to be a long, fun chat because I actually lived in Iowa for a small stint over by Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Oh my God.
I'm a Minnesota girl natively, so I live in between Rochester, Minnesota, and La Crosse, Wisconsin. So
fabulous! Oh my God, this we're carrying into cocktails after this. I don't care if it's.
We can go all over the place, but so tell us a little bit about yourself, about who you are, because I think it's so important for people to connect intimately and build those relationships. Like for myself, I'm an abstract painter, an avid gardener. It's what I'm passionate about. I think we're so much more than realtors. So talk a little bit about who you are, Judy.
Yeah. Well, it's sometimes I even surprise myself when I look back at my life here and go, wow, you accomplished that. Oh, wow. So I'm one of 5. My dad was an entrepreneur. I always felt most aligned with him. So he started his business out of the trunk of a car.
Wow.
And which was a tool business. And I supposedly story goes without too much detail, but he came home, told my mom that he left his job and then he was starting his business. He had a bottle of 99-cent Andre champagne.
Wow.
And I supposedly was conceived that night.
What a great story.
I always say I came from, I really am my father's daughter. But anyway, so my background is really fashion. My love was fashion and design, and I moved to New York when I was 23 years old, started my own company. So I lived this crazy life in the 80s, the best time in New York City. Oh my gosh. So fast forward, came back to Barrington. I have 3 daughters, 2 stepsons, and I was looking, okay, I'm ready to get back to work. What can I do that's entrepreneurial? What can I achieve? So real estate was, my dad, developed homes as well, in small doses, but mostly for friends and family. And his last big project was a marina on the Illinois River. So new construction smell is my favorite smell.
I love that.
Besides my Coco Chanel that I wear every day. I even sprayed some on today because
you're a mess over here. So.
Oh yeah, I literally won't change.
It makes me so comfortable. It's part of my routine, and even though I'm at home alone, I should appreciate it too, right?
Yes, of course, you have to appreciate yourself. So so I started 16 years ago in real estate, and I guess found myself with Sotheby's. I'm trying to think now. It might be 8 or 9 years, and I do bleed Sotheby's blue, and really felt like I found my family, and it's just the kind of brand that is my lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And people were, and people appreciate that. So for example, one of the first mid-century modern homes I ever listed was oh God, I always forget his name and it's crazy. I'll think
You're
of it.
fine.
Milton Schwartz. And I actually grew up going to this home. My friend from high school lived there, and his father was Milton Schwartz. And when I went to interview to get the listing, they had two other agents, and but the client said, and they were friends, but doesn't mean they're going to hire friends.
Right.
And they said, but we see the Sotheby's blue sign in our yard. And we knew our client had to be somebody, particular. And so I sold that. I actually got to sell that house twice because my client bought it and then redid it and then unfortunately had a job move. But so anyway.
That's true, though, that there's so much significance behind the power of that blue sign and what that means. I remember traveling with my grandparents as a child, and we'd go to these different neighborhoods. My grandfather actually worked for Bush and Reagan in the agricultural departments. We were always all over. But when we were vacationing, the neighborhoods that you were seeing Sotheby's signs in were the type of neighborhoods you wanted to permanently reside in, right? Like, I mean, it was a higher level, a higher echelon. And personally, as an abstract painter, there's no better brand I would love to be aligned with than Sotheby's. I mean, obviously it's my ultimate goal that someday my art is on the auction block, right? I mean,
well, you can do it.
I'll just start sending it to them, just complimentary. It'll be at their doorstep. What else are they going to do with it? No.
There you go. I mean, put it to the universe. You just say it out loud. Shout it from the mountaintop. You can do it.
So I personally picked the brand probably 3 or 4 years before I got my real estate license. It was just a natural, perfect alignment. I knew exactly where I was going and what I was going to do with it. And here we are today. So.
Well, yeah. And I mean, for me, Orlando, I didn't really think about, so I'm so glad to know that we've connected because it's such a hub.
Yeah, I really think Orlando has, I don't want to say a bad reputation of being Disney Central, right? Because Disney is a great place for entertainment, enjoyment. Our theme parks are fantastic, but it's such a diverse city culturally, and our neighborhoods, like I was just talking with a friend recently, much like yourself, we have these different neighborhoods that are kind of like Baldwin Park is very close to downtown. It's kind of Norman Rockwell-esque, very Americana, kind of has that Mr. Rogers neighborhood feel. And then we have historic Winter Park with great older architecture. It's one of the older communities in the Orlando market, just phenomenal estates. That would be one of your Sotheby's neighborhoods for sure. And then Windermere on our chain of lakes, we have fully recreational chains of lakes with, property values in Windermere on the absolute lower end. You're looking at something to be on the lake 4 to 5 mil, but upwards to 15 to 20 mil. So it's a beautiful, beautiful area. And people, a lot of people don't see the luxury side of it just because most of those neighborhoods are kind of tucked back out of the periphery of tourists. 78 million tourists annually. Your best, most elite neighborhoods are not right on the main drag, right?
Sure.
Yeah, but so let's talk a little bit about architecture today. I know, tell us a little bit about the house featured behind you there in your spot.
Yeah, so this is the Edward Dart home I started out by telling you about. So it's been the collateral on this home written up since, oh gosh, now I'm trying to remember what year it was built in like 1965.
Wow. I did find a YouTube video too on this particular home. I'll post it and a link below in the comments so people have access to the history.
Great.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. And really, when there's a couple funny quotes by Ed Dart. He ended up living in Barrington Hills himself, which he's from New Orleans.
Oh.
And he used to talk about how a home has to have a certain smell too. And when you talk about mid-century homes, I feel too, it's so about nature and bringing nature inside the home. And he also touted that he used very plain materials. So slate, this Chicago brick, concrete,
Yeah.
Wood, just very, very
Well said.
clean and textural,
Mhm.
very textural. And this home was featured, it's won all kinds of awards. Um, Edward Dart also is famous for building Water Tower in Chicago.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, which seems very out of character for him. He
Yeah.
also did about 7 churches, which this reminds me more of a church.
Yeah.
And when you do see the hallways and the walkways, he does catwalks and there's stained glass going up the stairs. It just really takes your breath away. And then it's sited, which was also very important to him, because it's 6 acres, but there's water on either side of the house. So there's a beautiful, it's called Lake in the Woods, a beautiful, very private, small lake with about, I would say 6 other homes, but again,
Sounds
from
gorgeous.
5 to 8 acres away from each other. So very private. And it's got this, you drive this incredibly long private drive, which is only shared with one other house. And you come up to the gates, the gates are opening and you're driving even further up this road. And actually, I just got him a deal with Fox television.
Look at that.
It happens a lot in our area as well. So not only am I a realtor, but I'm able to get your home featured in magazines or movies or TV shows. Yeah. So, yeah, and they just wanted to use the driveway. So that was the best. They were in and out after a day and, hey, better than a kick in the pants, some money in the bank and they're all insured and it's a great, interesting process. So,
brilliant.
Yeah. So it's a really magical place. And I feel like Ed Dart felt that about this location as well. And it was called the Hendrick home. And it was built for the Hendricks. And so a lot of the press, you'll see it called the Hendrick home. I'm trying to think about, and I like this too. A lot of the writers called this almost like a shadow box. So the way that Ed put these kind of towers, he played upon the light coming into the home at different times of the day. So it really became more a function of views and light, and then almost like the rooms became, okay, well then this can serve as this and this can serve as that. But it was all about arranging the towers and the siting.
I'm blown away. It's just breathtaking. All the thought, attention, and detail that architects put into these mid-century modern designs and really creating these organic marriages between the environment and the building structure. And I have to give so much credit to Frank Lloyd Wright for being such a strategic, out-of-the-box thinker to kind of take down the interior walls, open up the space. And I'm blown away. Obviously growing up in Minnesota, like I said, I've been to Spring Green, and House on the Rock is not a Frank Lloyd Wright creation. That's actually Alex, is it Jones or Johnson? Anyway, no one remembers his name. Yeah. But you see all these people who were inspired by Frank's designs, and obviously he lived a bit of a tumultuous, interesting personal life, but there's no doubt that architecturally he had significant influence in the lives of so many people, just inspiring them to go above and beyond with their creations and the flow of light and bringing in the trees and bringing in concrete into these structures. Because when most of these homes and buildings were created, concrete was kind of a new building material. We take it for granted now, but it was really kind of at the cusp of new age technology when it comes to constructing buildings. So I think it's really neat to see that they use a very affordable means of construction in such unique and interesting ways. It's just Neil Schweitzer is an architect here in the Orlando market that did a lot throughout Winter Park, who studied under Frank Lloyd Wright, and they actually built Florida, I'm gonna mess it up. I'm dyslexic, so that's a little interior secret. Florida, South Florida University. So it's in Lakeland. But, you know, Dwayne Stark, who was an understudy under Neil Schweitzer, built our Orlando Public Library. And it looks very similar to, you know, what you have behind you as far as the structure and the lines. And it's just, I don't know what it is about that architectural style. It just makes you feel alive, I think. It's just, you know. So.
Well, and, you know, think about it, because I thought about this. It's like, I feel these architects from the past were our celebrity chefs now.
Yes.
They were famous. They were so famous. And so they're maybe the little swagger.
Yeah.
The stories, you know, of the tempers or the, you know, very volatile, you know, things that happen. But I think you can definitely compare, you know, and on the other end is Benjamin Marshall, who's from Chicago, which is like over the top, but I'm part of that society. So I think I have multiple personalities.
I get it. My sister claims I'm the biggest Renaissance woman she's ever met. She's like, Miranda, do you have to do everything? Can you just pick one or two things that you don't want to be good at? I'm like, if it makes you comfortable, we'll figure it out. Okay. But so how did your passion for architecture start? Like where was the birthplace in your soul for this connection?
Well, it's funny because when I was in fashion, you know, fashion becomes is all around you. Mm-hmm. So fashion is not just something you put on your body. Fashion is something you surround yourself with. Mm-hmm. Fashion is a style. It's also your benchmark or your, like where your filter mm-hmm. of life. And so I've kind of had that all my life. So
I know that.
Yeah, I've always been interested
coming out and connecting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the thing is, I always say I have to own several homes, and being in real estate, that's helpful. So I've owned, you know, I've gone through all kinds of architecture. So personally, different things speak to me at different times in my life.
I love that.
And so I always want to learn about whatever it is that interests me or sparks my imagination, or, you know, how do I take this from A to B, C, and then I'm very eclectic. Yeah. You know, I could be, you know, China with, you know, my brick exposed walls here, you know, and mismatched China, and but a home, see, and also a little thing that a lot of the Sotheby's International Realty folks that have been around for a while know my Evoker film, because it was shown to all the owners and managers throughout the country a couple years ago when Evoker first started. So I'm a survivor of a tornado. So my whole home was destroyed, and my father saved our lives. Actually, the 53rd anniversary just happened. Yeah, my whole home was destroyed. Truck drivers had to give us out. My dad was down the street at a friend's house and called and saved our lives. So, it's crazy. Really here for a reason. So I know that a building is, you know, made out of drywall and screws and nuts and bolts and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's who you're with and who, you know, you surrounded yourself with. And don't put so much weight on what you own or have, because it can be gone in a second. And so, you know, I know.
Forgive me, Judy. Your story is so touching, and I can't imagine what that felt like to live through. And you'll have to forgive me for getting maybe a little more emotional than most with listening to the story. I personally I help out with some hurricane relief work after hurricanes hit. Mm-hmm. And Corpus Christi, Texas, after I think it was Hurricane Michael, and then in the Panhandle after Hurricane Irma and Maria. And it's just like, you see people who have invested their entire lives for either their primary residence or a second home that they've worked hard to save up for, and it's just swept away in a day. in a week, and
Moments.
people lose everything. And you're just like, it makes you value what you have. And I think because you've gone through that experience, and it just makes you a stronger person in guiding your customer, your client through a transaction, because you really have the periphery to go, do you have all of the insurance in place? What are we not thinking about that we can help protect you? Where do you want to be storing your assets? What is most important to you?
Mm-hmm.
And I apologize, but when you have an experience like that, or you see people lose everything, it just gives you a different appreciation for the value of what we work with.
Yeah. And and the depth of gratitude and love for my parents, who 5 kids, and getting through that. I mean, my mom got 5 kids, a dog, into the basement, and less than 2 minutes later, it hit our home. And then my dad had to run down the street and was counting our heads as, the truck drivers, anybody in there. So, and it's so really also the part to my clients where, for example, the house behind me, I mean, they have owned it for over 40 years, and, we got it under contract. And then the emotional pushback of, but wait, all my memories are here. Well, guess what? Your memories come with you.
Yeah.
And again, you have someone that, and who we found to buy this is amazing, because he's going to restore it, and it's true to Ed Dart's vision. And it's like a miracle that we have that, because so many of Ed Dart's home, I think I've counted 7, have been demolished. And again, it's a thing. It's a beautiful thing. And home, is wonderful. But it's like, again, it can be gone in a second. Mm-hmm. And if you get to move on and nobody takes your memories.
I actually had a realtor at my office, at my brokerage, who, when we were talking about we've been preparing the property that you see behind me for almost a year, getting it ready, just making sure that all of our ducks are in a row, so to speak. And he heard 4 acres. I mean, it's on Little Econochattee River. It's a beautiful acreage. And he heard acres in Winter Park. And it was like, ching, 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 money signs. It's like, ooh, we should just bulldoze that. And I was like, whoa. I mean, my face went red. This was in the middle of a sales meeting. My face went beet red. And I was just like, I had to walk out of I was just like, I'll be back in a little bit. I just walked. I was like, what? Like, it's a piece of history. So to see something that Ed Dart did, or Dwayne Stark and Neil Schweitzer, or Frank Lloyd Wright, these old historic buildings that need a sense of stewardship, that need someone to take on the legacy and appreciate the value of what's been created. And have you met Michael Finelli in Napa Valley?
No, but we're friends on Facebook.
Oh, Michael is amazing. If you ever get a chance to dine with him in the dark in Vancouver, he does a beautiful serenade. I highly recommend it.
Okay.
I don't think he tells people that he sings. He speaks more to his marathon running and his expertise in that realm. But
wow.
He is a fantastic human being and has a high value for the artistry of what goes into a home. I'll send you some of his property listings. You'll just be blown away by the articulation and how he describes every property.
Oh, yes.
But also, he puts a lot of emphasis on the fact that, it's the stewardship of who you're passing the home on to for the next generation, the next legacy, the next chapter of the story the home has to tell, right?
Right.
And I think that's what I love about this brand, is that in general, most of the individuals really value what's most important in the story of how a home was created, who's there, and who gets to own it next. I think that's, really important.
And I really see us as storytellers.
Yes.
And that's what we are. Mm-hmm. And the better, the story is, and, we're not talking about fabricating any stories, but it doesn't mean we can't embellish a little, but no. But that's why I love our book from Sotheby's, where you ask the homeowner to write their favorite window. Yes. Like, what are you going to miss? Or tell us the story about this. And I can't tell you how many times I've, I have a house from the 1890s that I just got a Victorian home that actually we think was on the Underground Railroad, a stop on the Underground Railroad. Yeah. But it's like I told a story about where they learned dancing lessons for their daughter's wedding. And this is because that's what the owner, the story, or when the hockey team from high school used to come over, and this is where they, people want to visualize, they want to see the painting and then how it relates back to them. And especially with these mid-century homes, we really do need to be the stewards and keep telling the story. Keep telling the story.
Judy, I am so grateful for the time you shared with me today, and I know I just can't tell you how impressed and grateful I am for your personality, your expertise, and I definitely can't wait to come up and join you and have coffee next time I'm visiting Chicago.
I can't wait. I don't know. I might be coming down to Florida, getting out of Illinois. I'll let you know, wink, wink, if I cross the border.
So one of my goals, lifelong goals, is to actually pick up a property in every key major city. It's kind of fun. I really, really want to do that, to have someplace I can visit and call home. Also, because you really get to know a city better if you have the chance to kind of live on the ground for a while. It's a silly little goal, but if I were to buy a home in Chicago, what neighborhood would you recommend off the top?
In downtown Chicago?
Let's say I want a suburb and my price range is $1 mil to $1.5 mil, just something really, I'd rather have small and perfect than big, elaborate. I'd rather have quality over quantity.
Well, you could go to the North Shore, Winnetka, Wilmette, Hinsdale, that you have some really neat homes on smaller lots, very close to the lake. Of course, I'm, prejudiced towards Barrington or Barrington Hills, where you don't necessarily have to be on 5 acres if you're in one of the other, like if you're in South Barrington or North Barrington. But with your goal of owning, I'm also own an Airbnb. So that you might want to preface it that way, because then you're earning money on your home.
Short-term rental.
You're not there.
So is Chicago, here I was going to wrap up, and now I'm so curious. Is Chicago pretty open to Airbnb? What are their views?
Yes. Really? Obviously not in the high rises.
Right.
But in the brownstones, or, low rises, things like that in the city. But what we're finding with the pandemic is people are almost like the Hamptons. People want to come and rent months at a time.
Yeah. And
my Airbnb is up in Michigan, but it's only about an hour and 20 minutes from the city of Chicago. And I'm completely booked and for the entire summer. And people are looking for their own swimming pools, their own, big yards, so that because the park districts aren't going to be open, the facilities at the high-rise buildings aren't going to be open. So everybody is really on the hunt. Yeah. So maybe that's your next show.
See, Orlando's actually cracked down quite a bit because of our hotel and tourism industry. But for people thinking of like a second home or an investment property, we do have some hotel, short-term hotel condos where you can purchase a unit, and it's really, really turnkey. They're even offering guaranteed like 2-year lease back, so you know exactly what your ROI is.
Yeah.
So there's some security in that. And usually prices start, mid to high 3s, and then you can go up just as extravagant as you want into the 1.2 range. But super turnkey, on premises management, so you don't really have to do anything. Right. And we're actually seeing a lot of attention from both New York and LA for products like that. But
definitely,
I can't wait to work with you more, Judy. Thank you so much. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. And if you're in Florida, I will drive. I don't care if it's Miami, Naples, I will come see you. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Okay, bye.
Bye now.